Hello, I am Simulated Ek, and welcome to a new series. This is Trainz 22. It is a train simulator, and what I'm hoping to get out of this one is that there's a lot of Australian content which is unavailable on things such as Train Sim Classic and Train Sim World. So Trainz is by N3V Games. And we are going to go into it. Well, first of all, we're going to learn how to drive because that's very important. Because I have tried to get Trainz to work before, haven't even got to this point. It just seemed to be a download simulator. But let's have a look. This is, by the way, the first episode that I've recorded for Simulated Erk at all in 2025 and in my new location. I moved houses in late 2024, so first episode in the new studio in the new Erk Cave as opposed to Erk Tower. So let's learn to drive, shall we? And let's go into drive. And so we'll load up and we will see what happens. Welcome to Trainz. So unfortunately I can't run it in my usual setup, so I've got to use full screen, which is unfortunate. Well, let's get into it. And so you won't be able to see all the dialogue boxes, but the camera menu, I'm just going to mute. The camera menu is one of the menus in the top left corner. It displays the list of available camera modes. From the camera menu, select cab or press 1 in the number row. So that's the camera menu. So we have, so this is a Southern Pacific locomotive, by the way. Alright, so this is an in-cab view. Let's go to number 2. So this is the chase mode. So you can move it around. Alright, so we can do that. We can go to our next one, which is line side, which appears to be from the other side. Roaming, so you can decide where you want the camera to be, I guess, like a roaming camera. Car view. So it wants me to open the camera view and select map. So okay, so this is a map of our location and what's around. So we can use the right mouse button to center a position. So let's go to consist 3. I think, that's the mode, that's the, okay, that we're already watching. So if we wanted to go to the Daydream Mine, So it's sort of like a Google Street View. Okay, so this is an above view. I want to just taking it back to where we were. All right. Now, is that all the camera views we've got? So it wants us to drive the train now. The speed control is in the bottom right of the screen. So so we're going backwards because we're 80%. So now we're going forward. So if I was to go to cab, into camera and then cab view. All right. To stop your train, press the stop icon or stop your train at the nav point. What this reminds me of at the moment is how I would drive a train on a train set when I was a kid, with the little dial that tells you how fast you can go, which direction, etc. Now it's not a precise Y, W and Z. I wonder if there's like an autopilot mode so you can get AI to drive the train so we can just look around and do stuff. So one advantage that this seems to have compared to Train Simulator, Train Sim World, is that there's many more options. Okay, you have completed the tutorial. All right, we'll go to next. So what it seems to be, there seems to be a bigger range of rolling stock. Oh, okay, now we're on the Rocky Mountaineer, selecting a path. Okay, mouse over the turnout ahead to reveal its overlay. Overlays can be toggled in the display menu at the top left by compressing Control H. Click the overlay or press J to switch the turnout ahead of you. So it wants us to go towards the left. Okay, switch the junction and then proceed. Start your train forward. So what I have done, I have purchased the Trainz premium pack. So there's a lot of locomotives. There's like $400 worth of locomotives, wagons and routes here for the value of about $100. So, but I have purchased some Australian DLC, so we'll see how that runs a little bit later. Okay, now it wants us to stop up ahead. Alright, once a turnout is in the rear of your train, you can switch it by pressing Control J. Now, I don't agree with this because, like, if I'm on the train, oh, hang on, what are we doing? That wasn't the best view. So if I'm on the Rocky Mountaineer, we are clear of the turnout. We've only got a 2-carriage train plus the loco. Now, it wouldn't be up to me in the real world to change the points behind my train. That'd be up to the person operating the signals, which wouldn't be me. So you can now proceed forward, prepare to stop at the red signal ahead. Now, is H for horn? Oh, H is for horn. Is that the red signal I'm supposed to be stopping at? Oh no, that'd be the signal for the trains heading the other way. That's not mine. Oh, this would be the red signal coming up that we have to stop at. Alright, Turnouts can also be switched in map view. Remember, you can select map from the camera map, the canyon menu at the upper left or by pressing M. So enter map view. In map view, turnouts can be set by clicking on them, zoom in using mouse scroll or the on-screen zoom button. So I need to I need to set signal junction Sierra Juliet 02. Junction, say that one. Proceed to the passenger depot. So we need to get out of map view. Let's go. Alright, so we've set that turnout. So let's have a look at cab view for a while. So it looks like this is the passenger depot. So we have to stop in 0.14 miles. It's not a bad cab view. It's not the best cab view in the world. Like, I'm not looking for this to replace Train Sim World or Train Simulator Classic. But what I am looking forward to is being able to see the Australian options that we've got. But of course I need to know how to use it first. And this is as far that I've ever got, by the way, in Trainz. So in this tutorial we've learned about how to change tracks. Alright, I have completed this tutorial. So we'll go back to our loading screen. We will go to our next one. Working in yards and marshalling consists is what we're doing now. Moving the freight to where it's needed usually involves some switching. First you'll be moving the boxcar at the warehouse over to the passenger station. Click the check mark when you are ready to continue. To couple to the boxcar, simply approach it at low speed and give it a gentle nudge. Take care, excessive speed may cause damage to valuable freight or even the boxcar itself. Couple to the boxcar on the warehouse track. So that is over there. So we're driving forward. A little bit of horn. So this is unit 1501. Yep, we're going okay. We're only going at very low speed, so I'll shut the speed off a little bit. Now these little locomotives are perfectly built for what we're doing now, although in the modern era, locomotives that I've grown up with being on the main line are now used as shunting locomotives, so. Alright. To transfer the boxcar over to the passenger station, you'll first need to pull it back out onto the main line, reverse back and stop the locomotive at the stop nav point. So obviously we're going to have to wait until both the loco and the wagon, which in American parlance boxcar, so our nav point, our stop nav point is coming up. Now I'm only going very slow speed because this is what you'd be doing in the real world. Actually, yeah, I'll switch the camera around. So we're going to have to get behind that set of points. So usually you'd have somebody on the ground with you at the same time. Alright, check that you have set the junction. Sorry, once you have set the junction, you can move the boxcar alongside the passenger station. Switch junction Papa 02. Push the boxcar forward into the station and then stop. So we'll go to our map view. So we're looking for junction P2. Now, of course, I don't know where any of this is. Okay, so was it J? Control J for junction. So we'll go back into our alright. So this is where we left it. So now we've set the points. So ideally we'd have someone talking to us on a radio. The person will be walking back alongside the train. So far so good. I've got our stop point coming up, or a nav point. The decouple button is one of the buttons above the speed control dial at lower right. Click it and you'll see a red couple icon. Click the red icon to decouple. So we click. So we've uncoupled. Next you'll be moving the boxcars from track 2 over to the warehouse track. So now we're just doing a different move now. Same sort of idea. Alright, so we've uncoupled the wagon. Now, a lot of the controls that I'm doing you can't actually see on the screen. Oh, that's right, I have to go backwards now. Stop. Oh no, so that's what we have to do. We have to keep going backwards. So unfortunately, until I figure out the resolution, there'll be a lot on the screen that I may be referencing that you can't see, but I have a stop nav point up here, which we just have to clear the junction and set the points again. Alright, you'll need to switch 2 junctions to couple to the boxcars on track 2. Switch junctions Papa 2 and Papa 4. So we'll go into our map view. And 4. Now you can go ahead and couple to the boxcars on track 2. Move forward and couple to the boxcars. So we zoom back in. So we've had to set these points to go towards the right, and we had to set the other points to go straight onto the cars that we'll see very shortly. We can turn the bell off. because what they're getting us to do now, these two carriages are on a different track than the one that we just put over at the platform. And this is what happened all around the world with various little sightings like this, you know, forming trains. The big train would come in, you'd put your little couple of carriages on, take them off somewhere else. Alright, now you can pull the boxcars clear of the junction leading to the warehouse track. Pull the boxcars back and stop the loco at the stop nav point. So now, what I thought they were going to get us to do is to put these two carriages we've attached to now, put them on the same track as the platform, as the passenger platform, but they actually want us to put it over, so I presume, so they can load up and take it to the goods shed over there. Almost clear. And we should be clear now. Okay, now switch the junction and take the box cars to the warehouse. Switch junction Papa 4. Push the box cars up to the warehouse and stop. So Papa 4, change those points. Control J, or just J. So here we are. So now we go forward again. So now they can unload or load both of these wagons when both of them are on the goods shed platform. Alright, I have completed this tutorial. Alright, what's next? We shall have a look shortly. Interacting with industries. Often during a session you'll be required to load and unload freight at points along the way. In this tutorial you will be loading lumber at the mill for delivery to another industry. You may start your train slowly forward when ready. Okay, at the sawmill you will see a load nav point. Stop at this point to load lumber, or in other words wood, onto the flat cars. You must load lumber onto both flat cars. Change the camera point of view again. Because I think this is heavily based on seeing your trains in action. That's the impression that I get. Like, you're not necessarily, unless you're driving something like an Australian train or whatever, which you can't really do on Train Sim World or Train Sim Classic, you're not necessarily doing this to drive a train. You're more like, you want to see your trains on tracks that you're familiar with. That's what it seems to be. Because I know I see on Facebook and I'm like, oh, there's so many good looking Australian trains on Trainz. So I find once I got the new studio set up, I'm like, let's do it. Now, are we going to be doing this all the time? Probably not, but I'm just going to go through all the tutorials on this episode just to give us a look at what is actually going on. So this is it. So we've got 0.3 of a mile, 0.2 of a mile. Actually, I might move the camera around at this point, maybe zooming in, so we can actually see the train at the nav point. So we can see all the wood there that has to get picked up. So we'll see now that both of our wagons are empty. Okay, at the sawmill, you must load lumber onto both cars. So what it's done, it's moved, what I think it's done is move the nav point a little bit so we can load the second one up. So of course, if you had 40 of these wagons, you'd have to stop and load them all. Alright, lumber successfully loaded. You can now proceed to St Nicholas Main Yard. The path has been set for you. So I presume this next bit will be just showing us to unload said load. And there's lots of different routes available. Some come included and then others you have to buy. In Australia that I'm looking forward to, there's a few Australian routes. Some of them seem to be in development and have been in development for some time. But we'll see what we can do. there's one especially that I'm looking forward to, especially considering that I'm living and working in Newcastle. The track profile below displays information about the road ahead, such as speed limits, signals and gradients. Click the settings icon above the driver portrait to enable or disable different elements as required. Which sort of works out in a similar sort of way to the HUD on Train Sim World, Train Sim Classic. So this particular one looks like it's set in an era, and I'll see if I can change the point of view maybe. This appears to be set in a time where Southern Pacific had cabooses, or what I'd call a brake van or a guards van on the back, even though we've only got two carriages worth of wood. See, I'm waiting for the tutorial that tells us how to select what carriages we want. See, on the heads-up display down the bottom, I don't know where the train actually is on that map. So it hasn't given us any instructions for a while of where we're going, so I presume we're going the right way. I presume once we get a bit closer to the unloading point, it will tell us that. So I'm just playing around with various buttons at the moment. Oh, it's got ditch lights. So it's got ditch lights that are flashing at the moment. So we can turn those off, turn those on, and then headlights on or off. Okay, turn the ditch lights off, turn the headlights off. I'm actually enjoying this more than I thought I would. The fact that I'm actually got it to work without necessarily having to do anything is a lot better than I have done on previous versions of Trainz. Change control mode. Hang on. What's... Oh, I don't think I want to do that at this stage. Oh, it's just changing the on-screen graphics more than anything. Now, of course, especially because I'm in the tutorial, I'm thinking that there's a higher degree of automation, things are set for us, and if we need to do anything, it'll tell us. It's certainly an interesting scenario and one that you'd probably have to do. Worst case scenario, you can always look at the bottom of the map and it would tell you where the signals are anyway. I still really haven't figured out my actual location on that map though. And this is the way it used to be. It used to be, you know, take things from one side of town, take them to the other side of town on a track. But now this move would be basically done by a truck. So at the moment the points are automatically set for us, I presume. So I'm presuming the yard that's coming up in the background now is where we actually have to drop the wagons off. So go forward a little bit further and then change the points and then go back into the yard to drop the wood off. So now that we've got the guards van or the brake van or the caboose on board, no, we're still not at the stop point. So the person in the caboose could possibly change the points behind us. Whereas in modern times that person would be on the loco. So 0.02 of a mile. So just basically got to make sure that the caboose is clear, fully clear of the points. Alright, the lumber is required at Missile 58 traction SA on the siding to the rear of your train marked by the unload nav point. Switch junction Sierra 16, then reverse your train slowly into the siding and stop at the nav point. Alright, so our points are set. Now we go backwards. So our points got set for us in the real world by the person riding in the caboose. He'd also be guiding us back. So the unload nav point would be set for the wood wagons rather than the caboose. Congratulations, you have completed this tutorial, and yes, I will turn the bell off. Alright, what's our next tutorial, I wonder? Some help with safe working. Alright, on North American railroads, signals are usually placed on the right hand side of the track. A red signal means danger, it's not safe to enter the block ahead. Clear, proceed. A green signal means it's safe to proceed and the line is clear for at least 2 blocks ahead. You now may start your train forward. Alright. So we've got a variety of what they call boxcars in America. So looking at the mud map, we're doing 11 kilometers an hour. Track speed is 40 miles an hour, I think I should say. Now, of course, as someone who is employed in the railway industry and has also a yellow signal means that the next signal is currently red. So I'd probably need to slow my train down at this point. You maybe need to adjust your speed to a stop at the next signal. Actually, for this, I think we should go in cab. Oh, I think I figured out where I am on the mud map. Not that you'll be able to see it at this point, but... So I think I figured out where my train is at least. So it looks like our next signal is actually a fair way away. Now, as I usually say in Train Sim World, Train Sim Classic, I don't have the road knowledge because I'm not driving on the simulator routes that I would in real life. So I will use things like the mud map, heads up display, etc. So at this point, it doesn't look like you can click on, say, the throttle or the brakes or whatever to get them to work like you would on Train Sim World or Train Sim Classic. But I am presuming that this is not the, that's not the idea of Trainz. So we're just going to keep driving this scenario. Alright. Okay, we've got a stop marker coming up here in 0.23 of a mile. Probably just where they're going to end the scenario. Oh, so that stop point up there, that stop nav point, could be the next signal. So that's the next signal, showing a stop indication. Now, in the real world, they'd be quite happy if you stopped here, although it does want us to go a little bit further up to the actual marker. Okay, another freight train is currently occupying the block ahead. Wait for the train ahead to clear the block. So now we wait. Activated drone camera. Remember, a yellow signal means the next signal is red. Proceed on yellow signal. Be prepared to stop at the next signal. Actually, we'll go back in cab. That signal has cleared for us. Oh, track speed's also going up to 50 miles an hour, by the way. Now, in the real world, of course, you would know, okay, this signal's cleared. It's a That's what I would call a caution signal, next signal being at stop. And so I would know exactly how far that the next signal is away that should be showing stop, how far away it is if I have to go up or down in the hills, and how far that signal is away. So I thought we'll show you some in-cab view. I'm actually looking forward to seeing what the Australian loco cabin views are like. I was at the Heritage Expo in Sydney, October 2024, and they actually had a NR class loco from Pacific National on display during that. Now I didn't go inside the cab myself, but I could see from in the platform level. So it'd be interesting to see once we get onto some Australian locos how detailed they are in the cab. So we'll pick up a little bit of speed. Now, we know when we departed, we had the caution signal, the yellow signal, so the next signal should be showing stop by the time we get there. Now, of course, by the time we get there, that signal could have changed because the other train, of course, is further up ahead. My theory is that it's sometimes better to, especially if you're on a caution signal, it's a little bit better to go a little bit slower than what the track speed is or the speed limit is, and not necessarily just speed up to the red signal and then stop again. So if you can hang back a bit, drive a bit defensively, and then by the time that you're approaching that next signal, it hopefully will not be at caution. You definitely don't want it to be at stop if you can avoid it. And if it's showing green, that's even better. Now, of course, from a driver's point of view, you'd always want your signals to be green. But that obviously doesn't work all the time. I know some operators have a procedure that if, say, that signal that we passed was a caution signal, so we know the next signal should be at stop. So they want you to travel at under half the speed limit. Now that, of course, depends where you are. The HUD in the lower screen shows a gradient profile of the track. Here you can see Trainz position relative to any signals ahead, and also the current state of the signals you are approaching. So what it's actually showing me, but I know you can't see, is that the next signal ahead has actually cleared because the train ahead has actually continued to move. So the signal that we're approaching, and that we're approaching very rapidly, is clear. And so there it is, the signal's clear. So we know now that the next signal we encounter won't be at stop. Now the next one won't be at stop, but the one after may be, but of course that will depend on what that signal shows by the time we get there. So let's put a bit more power into it. Now, if this is the first time that you've ever used a train sim, you may well not know all this. So it's very handy to do all these tutorials. And because I've never used Trainz before, even though I have used Train Simulator Classic and Train Sim World, but it's a totally different type of driving a train altogether. So you have to know little nuances between the two different types, or the different types of train simulator. So what we're seeing here at the moment is we're seeing out the driver's window, which in America, the driver or the engineer sits on the right-hand side of the loco, whereas in Australia and in England, the driver sits on the left. Now, as we go through this tunnel, I'll change the camera angle slightly and I'll give you a look at the other side. Now, the observer, or what we also know as a second person, would have some controls over there on the far side. What happened? Speeding detected. Slow down. Oh, the speed limit changed, and I didn't take note because I was talking. The speed display is next to the speed control. It shows your current speed and also the speed limit for the section. The track profile below shows the limit for the next section. So we need to slow down because what happened is the speed zone changed because I wasn't paying attention. And I'll change the camera back. Because I wasn't paying attention, I was talking. I wasn't watching what the speed limit was doing. So it's not how you might be in a car and you've got blanket speed zones. Your speed zones on a train can and do change. And of course, your maximum speeds that your trains can actually do themselves change depending on their capacity and also depending on the loads. But on these usual sort of train simulators, they will show you what your train speed is. Now at the moment that's 14 miles an hour. And somehow they will also show you what the track speed or the speed limit is, and in this case it's 30 miles an hour. So for anyone who this is the first time they've seen an episode on Simulated Irk, you might be here just for the Trainz content. I actually do have quite a lot of episodes up already in train simulators, in Train Sim World, and also Train Simulator Classic. And there's also a wide range of simulators that I use. Now, some sort of train simulator content when I do have episodes ready to go. Trains and trams come out on Thursdays. Buses and trucks on Tuesdays. We also have what I'm now calling in shorthand on my planner, cops and robbers on Mondays. And also if I'm doing any motorsport, that'll also be on Mondays. Workshop Wednesdays is an interesting one. It's lots of different scenario, different simulators. So it's not necessarily driving a train, driving a bus, driving or piloting a plane, etc. It might be doing things like unblocking drains, or cleaning up a train station, or doing some pressure washing, that sort of thing. And trains and trams on Thursdays. So lots of different playlists for you to explore. So if you're just interested in train stuff, there will be a Trainz playlist which just has all the Trainz episodes and that's it. So if you want to watch that, you can. If you want to see all the Train Simulator content in the one playlist, the playlist is called I Choo Choo Choose You. That was a horse, right? Signal caution. So next signal should be at stop, and we do have a stop nav marker anyway. Oh, there's a service station over there. So lots of different simulators. There's a whistle board. Now, of course, I'm blowing the whistle the way that I would normally blow the whistle in Australia, not necessarily the American way, where every time there's a level crossing, you're blowing a horn 5 different times, or with 5 different blasts of the horn. Because there is in America, in many parts of America, an actual code, and I can't remember what that code is because I'm not American and I don't use it, of when you blow your horn, the exact way you have to do it at every level crossing, provided you're not in a quiet zone. Oh, so it looks like we're coming up to a passenger train on... Oops, I didn't want to go in a map view. Whoops. I didn't want to do that either. Wanted to go back in a camera view. Oh, so there's the Rocky Mountaineer that we were using before. So I don't even know what part of America this is set, or if it's just a fictional... Some of the audio does get blown out from outside. That's definitely a cow. So if this is your first time watching Simulator Dirk, I'm Simulator Dirk, welcome. And if you've been here many times before, welcome back for 2025. The first new episode that I've actually fully started recording and edit and uploading in 2025. Simulator Dirk, by the way, started in 2016. Alright, there's our stop point up there. You might not be able to actually see it yet. So what we're gonna have to do now that that train's gone, we're gonna have to wait for it to clear the block ahead before we can go. A passenger service has priority over you. Hang on. I'll change the camera. That's a bit better. A passenger service has priority over your freight movement and has been allowed to proceed ahead of you. Once it has cleared the block ahead, you will be permitted to proceed. So now we have to wait for the passenger train to clear the block ahead. Now, that's actually happened. The signal's cleared. Now, if you're on a single line section, so there's only one track in between two stations or two interlockings or 2 yards, you would have to wait for the passenger train to clear that section and then start onto the next section before you can go. But because this looks like double track, the sections are shorter. But we are definitely now aware that we do have that passenger train ahead of us. And as a passenger train driver, there's been plenty of times that I've had to sit and wait for freight. Or my plans have been changed because of freight trains. We've got a signal. So our next signal at the moment, looking at the HUD at the bottom of the screen, which you may not be able to see. The next signal's at stop. I know that the passenger train's ahead. My road knowledge or my route knowledge would tell me where the next signal is, and roughly I would know how long it would take a passenger train to clear that block compared to the amount of time it would take me to clear that block. My train's pretty long. My train's pretty heavy. A passenger train would be a lot smaller and also a lot lighter. By the way, I've never driven a freight loco in real life. I've never driven a locomotive or passenger train in my entire life, so I'm basically, if you want to call it this, a multiple unit driver. I am currently qualified in electric and diesel multiple units at my operator. And I really love, now we can see on the HUD, but we can't see for ourselves with the Mark 1 eyeball, that the signal ahead of us has actually changed to clear. So the passenger train should be well ahead of us now. But here, I'm still driving under the assumption until I actually see the next signal. And that's why I'm not going super fast. Because I know that passenger train is ahead of me. Yes, I know that it'll clear, that it should clear the section, but then again, passenger trains, just like freight trains, break down, so you just can't assume that the passenger train ahead of us has had no problems. And having said that, I was stuck behind a freight train that was stopped in the section twice on the one trip, and I ended up at my destination 45 minutes late. So I definitely know what it's like to follow a train, and sometimes just when you get to that point, I knew that there was a freight train, there was a passenger train directly behind the freight train, and then there was me. And then we had to wait at two different places on two separate occasions because the freight train had stopped twice. I knew that it wasn't going to be a quick trip because I knew that I did have a train. That's clear. So I knew it was going to be a slow trip until I got confirmation that the freight train had been put away, to use my terminology, to be put away into a siding. So both the passenger train ahead of me and also I could overtake the freight train. So one of the good things here about having another person with you, apart from the fact that, now depending on how, because every operator is set up differently, at a bare minimum, with the driver/engineer in the driver's seat, and then again, depending on terminology, assistant driver, fireman, observer, are some of the terms that I've used, second person, because depending on the locomotive and if it's on a straight or if it's on a curve, the person on the other side of the loco might actually see the signal before you do. Okay, we've got that's a 40 board. So the speed limit, it might be a warning for a, okay, we'll just shut off for now. Approach medium, clear to medium, yellow over green in North America at least indicates you must approach the next signal at no more than 30 miles an hour as you'll be taking the diverging path at a turnout. Now, of course, a lot of operators and a lot of countries have different terminology. So here they're calling it approach medium or clear to medium. Now, depending on what happens, and we'll see up here, I might call it a turnout signal. So either a medium turnout or a caution turnout. Now, caution turnout would mean that the next signal beyond the turnout would be at stop, and a medium turnout or a turnout means that the signal after the turnout isn't or shouldn't be showing a stop indication. But there's lots of terminology, even in Australia, which is where I'm from. Originally born and bred in Sydney, now living in Newcastle. Medium to clear, red over green indicates it is safe to proceed at no more than 30 miles an hour until the entire train has passed through the turnouts. But we're going at a slow speed anyway, so we must be coming up to a turnout. Now, to me, that signals at stop. So we're going to treat it accordingly. To me, because it's very hard to see, they look all red to me. So let's go outside. This is a great thing that you can do on a simulator that you can't necessarily do in the real world. Now that's free red. So let's see what happens. We'll just go a bit closer to the signal. Now, because we're on a simulator, let's do this. Now, they're definitely 3 red. So we've got some shunting signals. So I don't know how I was able to pass that signal. It looked like it was all red to me. So let's go back in the cab. Now, what will often happen, especially as a freight train driver, is that you'll be put in a siding for a while to allow other trains to pass by. And if you're expecting to go through, and I'll use Sydney as the example because it's the one I'm most familiar with. If you're heading towards Sydney and it's the morning peak hour where all the morning peak hour trains are heading to Sydney and you're a freight train, you're not going anywhere. You'll get to a siding somewhere, and all this, by the way, is timetabled. So it'll be okay. You'll be going in the siding until this amount of time, until this time. So while there's some adjustments on the fly, yes, freight trains do have timetables, and yes, passenger trains do have timetables, and yes, I have read one. And sometimes there are adjustments made depending on how each train's running. This morning I was on a trip, for instance, and I was coming back in towards my home base, and a freight train had actually broken down. But luckily for me, this time was because this particular area is set up for bi-directional or two-way running, depending on your terminology. I was able to go around this failed freight train that had actually divided in half. Now, I don't know if it had actually broken apart or if they had a loco failure and they were trying to move it in sections. But because the route that I was on had signals in both directions, I wasn't stuck behind this freight train for hours, which was quite fortunate. Just KFC trying to sell me stuff again. Did someone say KFC? Hashtag not sponsored. So we're coming up to our stop nav point, as Trainz calls them. Now, on many occasions, you can actually turn all these markers off if you want to. Alright, you have completed this tutorial. Alright, So let's see, how long have we been actually recording for? Because it does seem like a fair amount of time. 96 minutes. Clues for completing sessions. We may actually do that on the next episode. I've been Simulator Dirk. You've been wonderful. Thanks for watching. And bye-bye for now. Stay safe out there.